Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Fatback 4 Daily, sponsored by Paddy Power. Tonight, I am delighted to have back with me Jim Fishlock. He's been away for a little bit, but he's back now. He has a beautiful kitchen, let's all be honest about it. But Jim, I wanted to get into, and I'm trying to get a couple of people on different shows to talk about this, and it's not only the Premier League, it's football in general across Europe and where you see it going next. People would have seen the social media and the build up to this on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, where I've mentioned La Liga, Ligue 1 in France, the Scottish divisions, the EFL, Serie A, the Bundesliga, and I just want to go through them nearly one by one, to just discuss the decisions that's being made with regards to the leagues, what they're looking to do in the future, and I'm going to preface it all with, look, I know how serious the whole situation is with COVID-19. People are unwell, people have died, people are still cocooning and stuff like that, especially the elderly. But I just want to look at it from, I suppose, a football, just a straight down the line football point of view. Jim, I want to start with Holland, Belgium, and then a little bit further on France. So Holland and France make the decision. And Belgium, I think, are forced. I think you said to me earlier, they're forced. So Belgium and Holland, if we take them both together, neighbouring countries, they both make the decision fairly early on that their leagues are not going to finish. Holland, I know, as things stood, that's the way the league was, and there was no champions declared. Belgium, I think, was the same, and I think Bruges were champions. When you look at that, we'll talk about Scotland later, who, if they were going to do it, why didn't they do it earlier? But do you feel that these two countries jumped a little bit too early, and maybe looking at things going, well, if you look at how bad Italy were affected, Italy, Spain were affected, the UK at the moment, and they're still looking to push the leagues through and get it done. Were you a little bit surprised that they went this early?
I think, without sort of knowing the exact implications that they would have had in their country in terms of keeping everybody safe, I think it's hard to know. But I think when it comes to particularly making decisions like this, obviously, I think sometimes the sooner you make a decision and go with it, the easier it is in the long term. So they've made that decision. They've got plenty of time ahead of them before they can look into starting a new season. There's plenty of time and plenty of scope for, if any of the other clubs weren't happy with the decision, to say move forward with any legal challenges, etc., etc. And I suppose it just puts an end to any sort of speculation and the constant back and forth, which is like what we're having in this country now. So I think overall, COVID-19 isn't going to be something that's ever going to just disappear off the face of the earth, from one day to the next. So there's always going to be, particularly probably for the next 12 to 18 months, remnants of it in all our lives in terms of social distancing and things you can and can't do. So I think in many ways, making that decision earlier rather than later, it's probably going to stand those particular leagues and those countries probably in better stead, I would have thought, moving forward.
Would it have been a case that, Holland and Belgium, the TV money and the losses to them, in comparison to, say, the English Premiership, was something that was looked at and thought, now it's probably big money to them, let's be honest about it, when you look at it as a ratio compared to what the English clubs get. But is it something that the government's looked at and said, no, it's something we can probably support the clubs with if they lost their TV money, and this is for the greater good? Or did the governments just go, no, we're not taking sport into consideration, we're not taking anything into consideration, this is just out of order now, it's non-negotiable, call a halt to it now and we'll deal with the situation later?
I think probably a combination of both, Gav, because I think in those particular countries and sort of the way the governments and I'm sure the football clubs are run, it's probably a collaborative thing a lot of the time. A lot of the decisions are done together. Whereas if you look in this country, particularly in the Premier League, you've got there's about 7 or 8 clubs in the league which are very financially strong, lots of sponsorship, however they're getting that money, whichever way you want to look at it. They sort of run the show, and the Premier League is left to run itself. you even had the government in this country calling for footballers to be docked wages or take pay cut, etc., to help fund sort of the NHS and things like that, which is only obviously going to cause animosity between the two parties. Which I don't suppose you have that in any of the countries, particularly not Belgium and Holland. So I suppose overall it is more a collaborative thing. Certainly financially, they're not going to be, the clubs in those two countries are not going to be desperate for the TV money to the extent that the clubs are in this country, because as you can see with League Two and League One and even the Championship, clubs are run well. They're not run well, are they? Let's be honest. If the figures that are coming out that you see on a daily basis, well, these football clubs, they are literally living on from day to day, and something like this is just going to cause absolute chaos with a lot of football clubs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I'm looking at it now. I believe Belgium just said as they stand, we're keeping that as they stand, and they've declared Bruges champions, and whoever else is in the European spots and relegation and stuff like that, they've nailed it. They've nailed their very definitive colours to that a very definitive mast early on. But when you look at Holland, they declared no champions. They declared literally it didn't exist. Can you see an issue for Dutch clubs when it comes around to, because from what I'm reading, UEFA are determined to finish Europa League and Champions League, whether that is in one particular place over the course of X amount of time. They are determined to get this finished. And seeing that happen, would Dutch clubs or the Dutch FA would be looking on, I hope they don't finish that, because they're then in the same boat as us and they can't do anything to us next season. Could they turn to the Dutch and say, well, look, nobody qualified for Europe. There was no definitive answer on Europe. So we can't let you enter in. No, I'm not 100% clued up on the rules. I haven't gone and read a rule book. But for me, looking at it, I would think that, look, UEFA can be quite a petty organisation when it wants to be. All right. So if they're looking at it and they're going, this is their flagship tournament, and Holland are ranked wherever in the coefficient, surely somebody further down the coefficient will be pushing UEFA to say, well, we finished their leagues. You can't let them in when they didn't finish and nobody qualified, and we're still on the outside of this small circle of elite clubs. Let's be honest with you, when it comes to Champions League in particular, and to a lesser extent Europa League. Could Holland be in trouble here? I
think so, and I think that's the difficulty. That obviously, this is a situation which nobody ever envisaged. No football club chairman, no chairman of UEFA, FIFA, nobody like that. Nobody would have thought something like this was going to ever happen. But I think what you're looking for is, and it's very difficult, obviously, because every league has different financial implications. Every league has different rules and regulations to a certain extent. But what you're looking at is, if one league says, let's knock it on the head and let's leave it as it is, whoever's top wins the league, whoever's bottom gets relegated, you're looking for uniformity. So you're asking every other club or every other league that knocks their league on the head to do the exact same thing. Because you can just, it's so easy there moving forward. If you're going to have the Champions League and European football next year, if you're going to use the previous season's qualifications, then obviously that it's easy to do that if the league has been ended and positions count. If you're looking at what's happened in Holland, are they going to ask UEFA to take last season's final places? How's that going to work? Is that going to open a can of worms for other leagues to say, well, actually, we want to be treated from the previous season's finishing places in the league? I don't know, but certainly, I think Holland could find themselves, like you say, UEFA could quite easily turn around and say, listen, we're not going to accept any Dutch clubs into any competitions this season. But the issue is then, what do they do the following season? Because whichever league comes in to replace them, are they going to just be kicked out after one season? What if whichever league takes the Dutch league's place, what if a team from that league does really well in the Europa League or the Champions League? With the Dutch ever going to get back in?
And their coefficient rises and reduces the amount of spots for Holland.
Exactly.
Yeah, like Kieran says on the chat, Holland is the most densely populated country in Europe. That may have influenced the decision. Oh no, listen, I fully believe that the government just, there may have been discussions with the Dutch FA. I believe there is, but they must have been very, very one-sided discussions. And what I mean by that is, one day it was like we're not too sure, the next day it was gone. You know, the kind of way. Like, then you look to France. I agree with you. I just on Holland, Belgium. Somebody says there they only had 2 or 3 games left, and he got Kieran again, and he said he couldn't understand why he just couldn't wait a while, come back and play 2 or 3 games, and it would have been all done and dusted, and you'd be fine. There would be no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. I agree with you. I think Holland may find difficulties when it comes to European competitions next season because they haven't declared anything. It's like declaring. You know, it's like not declaring any accounts and looking for tax back. It just doesn't work, does it?
It's not gonna work,
no, it doesn't. So, you know, moving on to France. So France take the decision, and it's interesting. You know, France, Belgium, Holland, they're all in it. You know, on the map, they're all very close to each other. But France take the decision that they're going to cancel the season. Of course, you know, every Premier League fan that isn't a fan of Liverpool thought this is great because this is a major league that's going to cancel null and void, and the English FA will follow suit. Null and void was never on the table. I think that's fairly clear because of the money. The money is absolutely monstrous in England. But when you look at France declared no, the season's over, and we have. I think they had 3 options at the time. There was a points per game, there was a weighted points per game, and then there was just leave it as it stands. They've declared PSG champions. They've declared whoever Marseille in the Champions League spot, and other clubs. They've gone down the same route as Belgium. For France, I think I read somewhere it's something like 300 million a year or 350 million a year for TV money for the league, which isn't sounding an awful lot, but it's a lot of money for a lot of French clubs. When you look at them, did they wait for you? Did they acquire the required or the sensible amount of time and then say, no, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to call it here. But again, you have teams that, you know, feel they could have got out of relegation or feel that they could have broke into a Champions League spot and now they're robbed of that. I suppose I'm asking, is there any chance that French clubs could turn around between now and the start of next season and put in some sort of objection to what happened in the league, a lawsuit, bring it to CAS, I don't know, because of what's being done? Do you think France waited enough time?
Well, I think France were quite severely hit, weren't they, with cases of COVID-19. At one point, I think they were, you know, it was pretty serious over there. So I think, you know, as with anything, when you're looking to close down amenities and close down, you know, the way of the lifestyle of the French people or whichever country we're talking about to such a degree, which we have done, then football is a part of that. And not just football, but every sport, rugby, cricket, you know, any sport, hockey, ice hockey, you name it, it's all been stopped. I think obviously football for us, because it is the sport and the teams that we support, etc. It is the biggest thing, and yeah, it does have a big impact financially on the economy for all the countries involved. But ultimately, and it is frustrating for those teams that wanted to get out of relegation, for example, or get into European places, challenge for titles, etc. Unfortunately, sometimes, and it very rarely happens, stuff happens which is more important than football. And that's what's happened with this. So I think, you know, the French FA, they made the right decision. You know, I know we'll talk about England, but I think the reality is, you're so many games into a season. You know, every league is at least 3/4 complete. And where you are after 3/4 of the season in any competition is a good indicator as to where you're going to be when it finishes. Might not be 100% correct. You might go up 1 or 2 spaces. You might end up finishing 1 or 2 spaces lower down. And I know you're talking about money and relegation, etc. But unfortunately, the league has to finish. No league is or should be called null and void. They should find a way to finish it. And if by calling it as it is, as it stands now, if all the teams have played equal games, then I think calling it as it is fair enough. So I think the French have made the right decision. And probably they could have made it a little bit sooner, but I'm glad they haven't let it drag on any longer, you know, like some of the other leagues that we're going to go on and talk about.
Well, just moving on, and I want to put La Liga and Serie A together. From what I can make out, I think La Liga is trying to get back, I think somewhere around the 25th of June. I think Serie A is a little bit before that. I could have that the wrong way around, but they're both looking to get back, you know, small group training, leading on to full training, leading on to
They're
games.
training in Spain now, aren't they? I know.
I think
training, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it might be Spain a little bit ahead of La Liga, of Serie A as opposed to the other way around. I could have them mixed up, but these two are surprising to me. Like we talk about the French league and the Bundesliga, and the Bundesliga is back, and we've gone through that, and it's been talked to death, and we've seen games over the weekend at empty stadiums and social distance celebrations and all sorts of stuff. But these two are the ones that surprised me the most because the Germans look to have a handle on COVID-19 from very early on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying the numbers weren't bad; they were, but compared to other countries, they weren't. The kind of way in comparison. But when you look at Spain and then in particular Italy,
Yeah, I'm very surprised that they're
with
thinking of
an
football.
area, with a country that was ravaged by this, like in particularly the northern part of Italy. These two were always the markers for me because I thought, listen, if these two call it off and do what France done, I think, although the money is massive in England, I think it might shift opinion, and maybe, England don't want to be stand there as the last major European league to say, well, we're still going. And you look at what's gone on across Spain and across Italy, but surely this is where I'm leading into money. I'm being honest with you, Jim.
Yeah.
This is where I'm leading into money because Spain's TV money is dominated by Real Madrid and Barcelona.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, we've heard about Barcelona may have to sell a player to buy a player, or they're buying players. No one knows where they're getting the money from. Real Madrid spend money hand over fist. They have a massive, massive wage bill, and they continue to build squad after squad. And again, people would ask questions about their financial viability. This would have been massive to Real Madrid and Barcelona in particular. And today I've seen a statement from Malaga where they've made people redundant because they simply can't survive on what's now nearly, what would it be, 2.5 months without football. And they would be at the lower scale of the TV money in Spain, and they can't even survive to wait to get back. You know what I mean? This is where money kicks in, though, isn't it? It's one of those where everything's being thrown out on the table, and it's basically Real Madrid or Barcelona or Atletico or Valencia or whoever it is saying, listen, we have to finish this because we are in serious, serious trouble if we don't get this done.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality of it in these countries is that the financial implications of not finishing these these seasons and getting these football matches on telly is going to have just the biggest impact. Like we've said before, you look at the football league in this country. League Two's knocked it on the head. League One probably going to end up doing the same. Championship clubs, so close. Look how quickly a few of the Premier League teams, I was included, look to use the furlough scheme. You're talking about massive Premier League football clubs looking to take advantage of that. Anything to try and save some cash. So if you are completely reliant to make your wage bill, to make your utility bill, do you know what I mean? To make sure there's, the kitchen's got food to cook for the players, etc., and the TV money that does that, because every other penny spent on wage bills and so on, on the football, on signing players, etc., then, anything that disrupts that is going to cause chaos. Anything at all. And like you said, Gav, we all know about Real Madrid and Barcelona. They seem to have a never-ending supply of money. Nobody knows where exactly it's coming from. Again, it's going to have a massive impact on them because both those teams, you look at them, they need a lot of money thrown at them again. They need a regeneration of players. Probably both teams need about 4 or 5 different players to improve the side. Where they're going to get that money from, then, they're going to need it to come in from somewhere, and it's going to be the TV money for this season, and obviously any money they get for next season again. So, yeah, it always comes back to that, unfortunately.
It really does, and I think while people are concentrating on this season, and I've said it a couple of times, in particular with the Premier League, they need to get it finished because I think there's well in excess of $1 billion hole created if this doesn't get finished on the pitch because TV money, TV companies buy a product. They don't buy a product of what where a computer calculates points per game and tells you who wins the league. If they did, they'd plough all their money into Football Manager. But like talk just to stay on Barcelona and Real Madrid for a minute. it's not only the TV money, and this goes across Europe, I suppose, to all the big clubs as well, like sponsorship.
Sponsorship,
Sponsors.
yeah.
Like take for argument's sake, just looking in the Premier League, the Emirates Stadium.
Yeah.
Now the Etihad Stadium is a different issue because it's
Yeah.
Man City, and when we know what way that goes. But even you look at the Emirates Stadium, or I think Bournemouth are sponsored by a company, aren't they, for their stadium rights and stuff. Yeah.
know.
So when it comes down to that, it's all that sort of stuff. It's listen, we have Standard Chartered. It's not on a, we don't see it every week, so why are we paying?
Every home game is gate receipts, is
absolutely.
merchandise, and it's advertising around the pitch. It's advertising on all the shirts. It's advertising on all the training kit. You name it. It's all about getting money. It's all about improving the revenue for football clubs. And like you say, nobody's seeing it. I can't remember the last time I seen a Western Union advert or anything like that. Anyway,
but this is what I'm saying,
because I'm not watching Liverpool.
Exactly,
and that's the same for everyone, isn't it?
And exactly, and it's the knock-on effect. It's not only your TV money or your, and then if you don't finish right, or you finish on a points per game, or the Premier League, after losing all that money, can't afford to hand you out your prize winning money for winning the league, or coming second, or coming third, and it's big money. It's big money for where you finish, and then there's the TV money on top of it, and obviously you get bonuses for the amount of time you're on the telly.
It's not just that as well. It's are they going to have to refund the money, because I think, doesn't the TV money get paid up front?
I think it does, over.
Or do they get it in installments?
I think they get it in season. There's a 5-year deal, but they get it at the start of every season. So, like clubs have obviously budget for this, and are probably using it to pay their players right now. And then you turn around and go, well, listen, we're not finishing, and the TV want their money back. And they're gonna get hit next season anyway, because the TV money, or the TV companies, are going to look to renegotiate during this summer and say, listen, you're not going to have a fan in a stadium till probably, in my estimation, February or March next year. So we're not actually getting the product, So we want X amount back, and there you go. A budget that's being hit already because you've done points per game is now being hit again because there's no one in the stadium. And against that, you're not selling anything in the club shop. You're not selling tickets. And you're refunding people's season tickets. It all goes on, but the money absolutely talks. But just looking a bit close to home, with regards to the Premier League, Scotland. So Scotland, a couple of weeks back, I think, called a halt to League 2 and League 1, I think. It might have been the 3 divisions, actually, the Championship, League 1 and League 2 in Scotland. And there was teams that were literally could have got out of relegation. Like, I think was a Partick Thistle with a point off safety and ended up going down. Again, I don't know if they're putting in some sort of thing against that. But the Scottish Premier Division announced yesterday, I think it was, that the league is now finished. I think they've done the points per game, and Celtic ran out winners. I think they were 13 points clear or something like that. Before it ended, and that's their 9th league title in a row and stuff like that. But did this one surprise you, Jim? Because it surprised me. And I'm not saying that the TV money for Scotland that I think Sky usually take is huge. I think BT do a bit as well, but it wouldn't be huge. But it'd be quite big to probably.
It's big to them. It's big to them.
It would be big to. How many? Is there 12 teams? There's 12 teams in the Scottish Premiership. It's probably big to 10 of them. But again, did this surprise you? Like, because we're talking about Germany, Holland, and Germany, and Holland and France that are quite close together geographically, and then you look at what we think the Premier League is trying to do, and of course just north of the border of Scotland. Did it surprise you that they done that, being so close to the Premier League and working probably under the same restrictions and stuff? Did it surprise you that they went and pulled the plug on this?
I think it surprised me more because Hearts were the team that got relegated, to be honest with you, because they've been terrible this season and should have been relegated, but in Scottish football terms, they're quite a big club. I think so. For them to have knocked it on the head, knowing full well that was the team that was going to be relegated, was quite brave, because straight away they are, and we know now that they're looking to take some sort of legal action, etc., to try and obviously get out of that. But I can't see how they're going to be able to do that, unfortunately. So it did surprise me. I thought they might have taken the view to maybe, null and void the season or just push to try and get it finished.
Mm.
Whether that is a bit of sort of, maybe they've made that decision again in conjunction with the government, because it is quite, in the UK at the moment, it's quite a fractured way of dealing with COVID-19. Us in Wales are dealing with it different to how they're dealing with it in England, and Scotland are sort of doing it similar to Wales, I think. Whether or not that's had anything to do with it, or like you say, whether or not it is just a matter that in terms of the costings and in terms of how much it is costing to run the football clubs between now and whenever they can end the season, they just can't do it. That's why they made the decision.
Yeah.
So it is probably financial, but Hearts are obviously going to not be happy about it and are going to launch some sort of appeal, I believe.
Yeah, because Chris Brack says on the chat, can Scottish clubs afford the cost of testing players and staff with all games behind closed doors? The talk is that testing will cost Premier League teams around 140,000 per team, per game, I presume, or per week. And it's a hell of a lot of money when you add it up for a Scottish club. If they have, I think they only had about 5 or 6 games left. Maybe a little bit more, but you're looking at a million. You're looking at £1 million, and this is after being on the back of 10, 12 weeks out. But it's just one of those where I don't know. Could the government have done something with regards to, or the SFA done something where they go, right, listen, we are going to, the prize money to make this happen. What we're going to do is we're going to put all the prize money into a hat. We're going to divide it by 12 and give it to you equally. Okay, and I know people at the top won't be happy with that, but having said that, you're losing money anyway, so you might as well take this hit and we can get everyone through the season. I don't know if they could have done something like that. Kieran says he's heard that the Premier League are playing somewhere in the region of 4.2 million for testing for all clubs between now and the end of the season. Yeah,
it's big money.
It is big money, but when you think about it, if they're losing, I don't know, if they're losing 100 million a team, or somewhere around that, for not finishing it, 4.2 million doesn't seem a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? It's what is it, 200 grand a team? But then when you look to the EFL now, the EFL, Rick Parry has had a lot to say on this, because look, there's been a lot of messing going around with the likes of, and like people shoot me down for this and say, oh, well, it's not really messing because such and such and such, but there seems to be stuff coming out every day from a certain number of clubs with regards to, it was all about safety. Then it was, they can prove the safety, and then it was, oh, well, we don't want neutral grounds. Well, was it about safety, or is it just your safety with regards to your Premier League position? It all got a little bit strange. I've seen Shawnee there has said on the chat that I think it's come out that 4 of the 6 tested positive are from Watford. And I know Ian Woan from Burnley, the Burnley assistant manager, has come out and that's being said that he's one of them. But when you look at the EFL, and Rick Parry has said that if 3 teams don't go from the Championship, they will look for legal advice with regards to looking towards the Premier League and saying why. League 2 was gone. Is League 1 gone, or is it still around?
I think they're still around at the moment, but I think they're
still around at the moment.
They're going to be going the same way, I think.
I'd say they will, and again, it'll come down to TV money. But how did they survive? It's being said there. Owen Burke has said about Peterborough have said that if it's not finished out, even behind closed doors, they will owe about 800,000 back to TV money. 800,000 for Peterborough. So you can only imagine what it is as you go further up the scale. But when you look at the Championship, do you feel the Championship will get finished behind closed doors? Because I read something today that 24 teams had a meeting, I think it was today, and discussed the possibility of finishing out the season. I think 23 of them agreed, and I think Hull City
it was Hull said they didn't
wrote to the EFA or whatever and said, or the EFL, and said, no, we want it null and voided. It is better for those teams, isn't it, to get this done, whether it's behind closed doors, because again, you get a season finished. Your losses are match day, but you're going to get your money for the season. If it's finished out.
You're going to get. You could argue, and I probably have a good case to argue with the TV companies that we're going to get football on. You can show it. It's going to be on the telly. People are going to watch it. So, for example, if it's on Sky, I've got Sky Sports. I'm on a sort of discounted rate now for Sky Sports because they've gone on live sport. But once football starts up, they're going to go back to charging me the full price. I can't say to them, well, there's no people in the ground watching the game.
Yeah, but they will use that against the Premier League. There's no doubt about it. In my opinion, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they probably will try. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're paying to watch the best footballers in the world play football.
Yeah,
whether they're playing,
regardless of surroundings.
Regardless of surroundings, if they're. I've watched games at Highbury on Sky when they was being redeveloped and they had the painted.
Oh yeah, the thing behind the goal.
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, it was painted.
I know they still had three stands, but let's be honest, we're going to be paying to watch the football. It doesn't matter that there's 40,000, 50,000 or whatever. So I think there's an argument to be made there that if we can get the games back on, we'll have our TV money, etc., etc. Personally, this is my personal thing. Is I think. All the seasons, all the leagues should just be ended. If all the teams have played the same amount of games, then I think the season should be ended and everything should be resulted as it is then. So I know the Premier League, Sheffield United, I think, had a game in hand, and that game in hand was against Aston Villa.
Yeah, there's so many teams there that are on 20. I think Liverpool.
Yeah, I think those two are on 29 games. Everybody else has played 30.
Yeah, there's 4 to 6 teams I think on 29 games.
So personally, I would say that the teams that need to play games to get it to the equal number, I would get them to play their games, and then I would then end the season after that. So, for example, if Sheffield United had to play Aston Villa, and Aston Villa win, they come out of the relegation zone. If Sheffield United win, they end up in the top 4 and they qualify for the Champions League. Then that's everybody's played the same number of games.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I think they should do.
Yeah, I take that on board. I disagree with it. I'm being honest, and the reason for it being, I was only thinking the other day. I think it was West Brom around 2004. Brian Robson's in charge, if I'm right.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Horsfield's playing for them. His name is in my head for some reason, but they're atrocious. They're a terrible football team, and it's called The Great Escape. I think it still goes down as one of the best escapes in Premier League history. They do it on the last day of the season, I think, at the Hawthorns. And I'm looking at something like that, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, okay, Norwich have been, people have liked what Norwich have done this season. I personally haven't, because they've conceded a lot, they haven't scored a hell of a lot, and they haven't won a lot of games. That's not how football works. They like to pass the ball, fair enough, but that's what's got them into most of the trouble they're in. But I'm looking at, say, maybe not on Norwich, they're on 21 points, I think. But if you look just above them and you say, yeah, whether it's Bournemouth or whether it's Villa or whether whoever else, Watford are around there, Brighton are around there, but you could look and go, yeah, they look like they could go down. And the argument against Brighton is, if you look at the next 6 fixtures, I'm not surprised they're worried, because I know I think the top 6 that they're all playing in the next 6.
They've got a lot of tough games in their last 8.
They've got, so. There could be a team down there that go, well, we're in the relegation zone. If it's not going to be null and voided, we don't want it done on points per game because we won't get out of this. It's one of those where they go, we could go on a run. I don't think
there's ever going to be, and that's the thing with football, is that everybody can reference something that is unbelievable that has actually happened.
Yeah.
But I think at some point there has to be you could do a West Brom, of course, that could happen. But if you went back over, if you pulled over the history of the Premier League, for example, I'm sure if you looked at the bottom 3 with 8 games to go every season,
would there be much change?
Would there be much change in terms of teams staying up? You might have the team that finished, that was like 16th, went on a good run, teared up towards the end of the season and got from 16th up to 12th. Okay, they're going to have a little bit of extra money in the kitty for finishing higher in the league, etc. But is there really going to be, we're not talking about the tightest other race, I think, apart from the bottom teams getting relegated, is I think 4th, 5th down, isn't it? I think 5th, 6th and 7th are quite close.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, if they can't finish the Europa League and the UEFA Champions League this season, they might have to just put the same teams in from this season back in next season's, so we don't know how that's going to pan out. So again, there's never going to be a perfect way to finish it, because even if they do play it at empty stadiums or neutral grounds or whatever, teams are always going to have, because of everything that's
something
happened,
to fall back on.
Always going to have a fall back on and say, well, that shouldn't have happened. So it's unfortunate for any, and I would be saying this if I was a Liverpool supporter, or not. As it is, we're sort of 25 points clear or whatever, and it doesn't really matter what happens. But again, conceivably, you could say it's mathematically possible for Manchester City to overtake us. But on the balance of probability, are we going to lose all 8 of those games or 7 of those games, and are Man City going to win them all?
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. But it could.
Yeah. They've 10 games left, and they need to win them all, and we will need to fail to win nearly all our games. There's a little bit coming in about Watford here. Apparently, Watford players are refusing to train. Let me see. I don't know if that's a complete squad are refusing to train, or whether that's Troy Deeney on his own. I've just lost Jim for a second there. But I'm just going to chat around this for a little minute. The Watford thing. Sorry, Jim, you're back there. The Watford refusing to train. I'm not sure if someone could just update me on that. Antico was saying it there. Is that coming out tonight that they're refusing to train, or is it just the Troy Deeney thing and a couple of players on top of them? I know where you're coming from. If you want to get everyone even, like someone else pointed out, not everyone's played 15 home and 15 away. That's another loophole, and we could go through loopholes here all night. Like Santiago says, what he can't get his head around is the little planning there is by the Premier League itself around a crisis such as this. No plan B, too many loopholes. It's a mess on all levels. That's a fair point, because you would think a league would be watertight regardless of what situation was thrown up. Absolutely. If World War III started, what are we going to do? Now, if World War III started, who gives a shit about football? But having said that, if it was threatened and started for a week, and then we kind of go, well, no, it's all right again, lads, what are we going to do? Yeah, I know where he's coming from. It's a frustration with that. But look, it's all down to money, Jim, and we can go round in circles all night, but it all comes down to money. And I get where you're coming from. If everyone's on the same amount of games, the probability of what happening, and you can just go, listen, you've all have an even amount of games. Okay, you might have played some harder teams, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and we're going to end it here. But again, if that happens, you will not see them get their TV money that they feel they're entitled to, or have received already, as we've discussed, and then they have to go, yeah, I know you're losing X amount of millions a week because you're not playing football, but now we want 25% of that TV money back on top.
I think really what needs to happen is they need to make the decision about what they're doing. And then once the decision has been made, then they go away, because don't forget, the teams that get relegated, they all receive a parachute payment for, I think it's 2 or 3 years when they go down to the Championship, et cetera, et cetera. Now, do the Premier League as an organisation subsidise that? This is all something that can happen at a later date. These things don't need to be ratified before they decide to end the league in whichever way, shape or form they want to do it. These are things that will come afterwards, because undoubtedly, there's going to be fallout in whichever decision they make. So if they said now, for example, tomorrow morning they wake up and they say, listen, we've had these 6 positive tests back. Okay, it's not all players, but it's some staff. This has now meant that
it looks like it's 1 player at Watford, 3 staff, and Ian Wone from Burnley is number 5, and I don't know who number 6 is.
So let's say,
judging on the news that's come out tonight.
Let's say, for example, all the Watford players and staff now say, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. And no way, shape or form are we doing it. Okay. Burnley might say the same, for example. So say the FA now, or the Premier League decide now tomorrow morning, they say, right, okay, well, we have to scrap all these dates that we had, push it back again. And all of a sudden you're into July before the players can even go back training. Well, you're getting to the point there where how long do you keep it going? How long do you keep pushing it on and pushing it on and pushing it on? They clearly want to be able to start afresh next season with a line drawn under this. Teams being promoted, teams being relegated, etc., moving on. So somewhere along the line, somebody's got to stand up, make a decision, whether it's the chairman of the Premier League and say, on this date, this is happening.
Well, I think that's where it's
out
going.
of their hands, and then they sit down with the clubs that have been affected most from it. So, for example, the 3 teams that are going to get relegated, and say, we will try and come to some agreement with you financially to support you over the next couple of years, further to the parachute payment. Because obviously the Premier League is a massive organisation. It's got massive money. Whether or not it's going to lose some this season and potentially next season, of course it will. But I'm sure that there is some sort of financial way that they could support the clubs that are affected by this. And those clubs are going to be the teams that get relegated, unfortunately.
You see, what I think is happening here is I think clubs that are in danger of being relegated on the pitch are weighing up the losses they would have if it wasn't played and their TV money losses, okay? Or TV money sponsorships, endorsements, bonuses, whatever it may be. Because we know, listen, players sign basic wages and then they get, well, I know at Liverpool, a lot of them are on a basic wage and then it's topped up by bonuses, i.e. goals, trophies, wins, whatever it may be. Clubs are very similar. We know with Liverpool, they'd have a bonus if they won the Champions League from Standard Chartered or Western Union or whoever the sponsor might be, Dunkin' Donuts from a couple of years ago, whatever it is, right? We know that's how it works. I feel that the clubs down there are weighing this up and saying, well, we could lose X amount, okay, and kind of soak that loss up and still be in the Premier League, as against playing this out, going down, and I think I read somewhere it's a huge amount of money you get as parachute payments over 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's massive.
But you're in a championship then that's on even reduced money because of what's gone on. They're weighing this up, and that's what I feel it is. There's too many excuses have come out. Like, don't get me wrong, Troy Deeney has said he doesn't want to go back to training because he has a young child at home that has breathing difficulties. And I've seen people say, well, he lives in a big house. That's not the fucking point.
That's not the point.
No, you can live in
his job first and foremost.
Exactly. You can live in as big a house as you want. You can live in a compound, right? But at the end of the day, are you telling me you're going to go home and go, well, listen, I have to play football, so you have to go over and live on that side of the house, and you're my 5-month-old son. Now, obviously, he's not going to understand you. No. He's 5 months old. But what I'm saying is, I have a 4-month-old child. I have a 4-month-old child. If you told me to come home, I don't live in a massive house, but if you told me to come home and have no contact with my child because someone's asked me to go to play football, I would probably go, I agree with Troy Deeney. Genuinely, I do, right? But what I'm saying here is, it feels to me, and I get where Troy Deeney's coming from, but there's been too much stuff come out, likes of neutral grounds, no relegation, this, it's being thrown. It seems to be a different topic every time one is knocked down. Something else comes up. This testing today is of 786 people. I think there was 6 positive tests. I think what's happening there is that they're putting the responsibility on the clubs now. So what they're saying is, we've tested everyone. We've noted who is positive for this. So Ian won't be around Burnley for 2 weeks. Simple as that, right? The rest of Burnley are asked to come in, train in small groups, and there would be a protocol as to how they would carry themselves over the next, whatever it is, 8 weeks, 9, 10 weeks, okay? Now, it'll be a pain in the arse, don't get me wrong, because if you ask me to do it, I know I'd feel, well, fuck them anyway. I have to do all this. But that's the job you're in, okay? They're putting the responsibility on the clubs now to say, well, we tested it. We've now moved away the people that are positive. They can isolate for 2 weeks and come back and they'll be tested again. And we're going to continue to do this. And now it's up to you as a Premier League club to make sure that any player or any member of staff that needs to be involved or at any of your games from here to the end of the season are tested constantly and live by these rules. If they test positive and they need to be removed and they infect 3 other players and they need to be removed, that's your call now. That's it's on your head. That's what I feel is happening here.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're only going to go so far, and that, I think I saw something tonight that they said they were discussing possibly putting the players into hotels for 2 weeks. When they're at training, as well, to make sure that when they're getting their fitness up levels for the games to start, to keep them away from going home and mixing with other members of their family, etc. Anyway, to try and mitigate some of that. But again, how sustainable is that? As a footballer, are you going to want to go, say, get up in the morning to your wife and your kids and say, "Oh, by the way, I won't see you now for 2 weeks." What sort of impact is that going to have on their family life, their mental health, their well-being, so on, etc.? I'm guessing they'd have to do that because that is the job they're in, like you say. But these guys are human beings; they're people as well. So yes, they get well paid. Yes, they're in a privileged position, but they're human beings. And if it's not safe for me to go back to work or for you to go back to work, should they be expected to purely for our entertainment? Really?
No, I get that.
It's
a difficult one.
It's so difficult, Gav.
But you see, the thing is, and this is the reason why I feel like the Premier League or the FA are putting the responsibility onto the clubs now. Okay, because the clubs will be the biggest losers overall. If money is affected in the way we think it's going to be affected, right? This Troy Deeney thing seemed to be a Troy Deeney speaking out against the FA or the Premier League or whatever way they want to sort this out. By doing this today, they're trying to show clubs that this is the safest place you could possibly be. Yeah. Okay. We're going to test constantly. We're going to have massive protocol in place as to what you have to do on a daily basis, an hourly basis, a weekly basis, wherever it may be. And they're putting it back now and basically going, well, this is now between Troy Deeney and Watford because we have government guidelines that the government have given us with regards to going back and playing. We are putting them in place. We have tested everybody. We are going to have everything in place, whether it's training, going to and from training, going to and from games, playing in games, after games, everything else. Now it's between Watford and Troy Deeney. So Troy Deeney refuses to train. Watford can't go to the FA and go, well, he's refusing to play. We go, well, he's your player. We have everything in place here. We have everything in place to make it absolutely safe for you to play football, okay, and do your job. Listen, it's divide. It's a little bit divide and conquer. That's what I feel like. It's like.
Well, I think at the same time, Troy Deeney could have a conversation with Watford and say, I'm not fit to play or to be considered for selection due to, this has caused completely family breakdown at home because you're expecting me to do A, B, and C. So it's affected my well-being, my mental health, etc. I'm not available for selection. You could quite conceivably do that. And, you could, the other side of the coin is, Gav, is that they might have put all these things in place, or they might have said, we want you to put all these things in place, but you're relying on the facilities and everything to be put in place by clubs. You're relying on outside agencies to come in and put all these things in place. Who's to say that the treatment you're going to get at one club is not going to be as good as you get at another club? Because lots of clubs are going to be better organised than others. They're going to have obviously better facilities. It's going to be easier for some clubs to organise these things than others. So it is going to be different. It is going to be difficult for them. But I still think the players, ultimately, they've got to make the decision that do they feel it's safe for them to go into work or to go to training and be in those surroundings. And if not, it's a matter for the club to sort out. But who the club picks and who they make available, that's down to them. It's going to fall under a contractual issue. If he says I'm not fit to play or fit to be considered for selection, these are the reasons. Watford, I don't think Watford have really got much of a leg to stand on to say, well, okay, we won't pay you, because I can't see how he's breaching contract because he's not making something up. It's not a discipline issue. I wouldn't have thought. So I don't really know where they would go in with that because the PFA are obviously going to be on the players' side, I'm guessing.
Well, trying to look at it from both sides, I think Watford may have a leg to stand on because they could say that, look, we're providing the safest possible environment for you to do your job in, and you're refusing to do it. Now again, look,
but I think because of his circumstances, I think.
Oh, because
in that individual basis, I would suggest.
Yeah, no, and on that, and he could turn around and go, well, listen, rip up my contract.
Yeah,
I don't want to be paid
yeah.
anymore. He could literally ask for a mutual termination of his contract because he feels he cannot provide the job that he is being asked to do in any circumstance. So rip up my contract. Now, Watford don't want to do that because I don't know what age Troy Deeney is, but I'm sure if Troy Deeney was put on the market in normal circumstances, Watford would probably be looking for 10 to 15 million pounds.
Yeah. I think Troy Deeney to them is obviously worth more than probably what they get.
He's worth more, but
what they get for the transfer fee for him. But
yeah, exactly. But if somebody came along, i.e., I don't know, Everton or Crystal Palace or somebody along them lines and said, we want Troy Deeney, Watford would probably go, well, playing was 15 million quid. 15 million quid is not to be sniffed at, especially in today's environment. So, they don't want him to do something like that where they go, well, he's willing to walk away here, the kind of way, and they don't want that happen.
I think ultimately what it comes down to is leadership from the top down. So what you're looking at is like we've said already, is somebody who's to step up, who's in charge of the Premier League, and say, this is what's happening. You're either going back to play, as in this is when the league will be starting again, subject to if there was another serious spike in illnesses, in which case we'd have to, but you have to look at it like we've said, the figures, the number of people who've been tested, the number of people who've come back as positive, and what their relationship is to the club itself. Are they players? If they're staff, then they can be isolated separately. Not the players don't come into contact with all the staff. If it was a member of the first team squad, then obviously that's a bit different. If all of a sudden we find out tomorrow that 3 members of the Watford first team have got it, then you'd probably have to put the whole team into quarantine. In which case, that's going to cause a massive implication for going forward, because Watford are obviously going to be even further behind the other clubs. And that's the issue you're going to have going forward with this all the time. It's all very well testing all these people. It's all very well saying, well, we're only getting 4 or 5 tests coming back from 800. That's brilliant, but it depends on who those people are.
Yeah, but this is where the FA and the Premier League are trying to draw a line under, dragging it on. They're saying, okay, you've all been at home, you've all been self-isolating, or you've been staying at home and following protocol from the government and wherever else. And what they're saying is now, we are going to provide you with everything you could possibly need to make sure that you will not contact this virus. If you do exactly step by step what we're asking you to do, it will make a work environment very, very safe for you to go to, one, do your job, two, and go back to your family and be okay, providing your family aren't out and wandering around the place. You know what I mean? Like, it all does depend on that as well. Like, players can do as much as they possibly can. Clubs can do as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But listen, if I'm a Premier League player and I go to work, okay, and I go in and I give it a test every day, and I go out and train in small groups and I do everything, and I come home and find my wife or kids are fucking down the supermarket wandering around the place.
Well, I think that's the other thing in there, is that in England at the moment, they can go. For example, Troy Deeney's wife might live in Watford, for example, with their kids, but she can jump in the car if she wants to go down to like Southend-on-Sea or whatever for the day. As long as she gets home before bedtime. So you are right, Gav, in what you're saying. They are going to be in a position where they can have everything they need to make sure that they're not going to come into contact with anybody with this illness, and all the tests. Nothing's 100% safe, is it? That's the reality of the world. Is nothing is 100% safe. So you take a chance.
You're not relying only on players. You're relying on the people they live with as well, and the people they contact with. So and like somebody, Kieran says there, a player's missus going to shopping is more of a danger. Well, I did read that. It's actually safer to go and play Premier League football and train with these people.
Well, there's been a few Premier League players who've been doing plenty of other things.
That's
few weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been calling them special friends to come around to them and stuff like that. But random questions. We always get random questions on this show. If we have about 5 or 6 minutes left, if you have any random questions for myself or Jim, throw them in and we'll try answer them before we finish. But Jim, taking it all into account, looking at, like we started there, we started with Holland, with Belgium, France, we looked at Spain, we looked at Italy, we looked at the EFL, Scotland, and for the majority of the Premier League and what way they're going to do it. What way do you think it goes? What way, in your like put the Liverpool thing aside, because look, regardless of what happens, Liverpool will be champions. It's as simple as that. They're not going to null and void it. If they do a points per game or a weighted points a game, Liverpool will probably end up around 107 points. If they play it on the pitch, Liverpool will win those 2 games if they even need to do that. Okay, and you know, like it doesn't matter if what happens. We're a Liverpool thing, side of things. So just taking all that aside and just looking straight down the line as a football fan, or trying to look from the outside in, I suppose, what way do you see it finishing out?
I think they're going to do everything they can to get these games played, rightly or wrongly. I think all the games will get played. If everything stays as it is in the world, the games get played as they are at the moment. The games get played. The season ends. Everybody finishes where they finish. I don't think the bottom 3 will change, even if they play the games. I don't think the top 4 will change. So I think it'll end up being a bit of a pointless exercise, because I think everything will stay as it is.
Okay, you just but I think it gets finished out on the pitch. I'm being honest.
I think it will get finished on the pitch.
I think it's behind closed doors. I think they will make it as safe as they possibly can. They will get it done out, and then they will look to next season and see what they're going to do. But I don't think there'll be a fan in the ground. I'd be very surprised if you see a fan in a ground by the end of 2020. I'll put it out there.
I agree. I think next season doesn't start until October, and then if there's anybody in grounds before sort of February next season, or next year, should I say, I'll be amazed.
Yeah, like looking at the Premier League, if they're looking around the 19th of June, I'm thinking they're probably going to try finish this by the first week in August.
Yeah.
And then they're probably going to give them a couple of 3-4 weeks off and start in around the same time the Liga starts. But then you're probably looking at, you know, the whole winter break thing will come up again, and then you have the Euros that's being thrown on top of it. The African nations, I don't know what will happen. I think qualifying was still underway when all this came to a halt, but look, we'll have to wait and see. People are asking random questions, and they've only want one question asked. I don't know if Jim has been asked this question before, so I'll ask him. So we have a question on this show, Jim, that we ask to most guests. I'm not too sure if you were asked this. It's basically about jumping from one building to another.
Right.
Have you been asked it?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, brilliant. That's all we have to, because we've 3 minutes left and this will fill it nicely. So here's the scenario. 2 buildings, 50 stories high. They're both flat roofed buildings. Okay. Basically, you know in the films where you see somebody jump from one building to another and you're like, geez, how do you do that? I want to know what you feel the maximum gap between those 2 buildings would be that you could jump. Okay. Now, there is a few bits in here. You can have an incline on one roof to run downhill and jump if you want. You can run up a little hill if you want. And you have 11 miles of wind helping behind you, which could be crucial. I don't know.
No, I don't.
Answers have ranged from 2 feet to... Trev Downey told us 9.65 meters because he reckoned that was a millimetre short of the world record. Yeah, well, he would, because an aerodynamic beanie hat on or something along them lines. But so basically, you have these 2 buildings, and your challenge is to jump as far between those 2 buildings. What do you reckon it would be?
God. Have I got like a cape or anything? Can I have like a cape on, you know, like Batman, you know, he gets to do a bit of base jumping or something like that? Or
I'm not dressing you on the morning of this challenge, so you can throw them wherever you want.
Because in Mission Impossible, he does that
cape is fine. I wouldn't go full Batman or Robin though on it.
All right, okay.
You know, it'd be a little
I'm just thinking that scene in Mission Impossible 3 where he does the base jumping, you know, when he
yes,
you know, I'm trying to work out. I can't remember the facts and the figures he used, but he did. There was quite a discrepancy, wasn't there, between the 2 buildings?
Well, these are exactly the same height.
They've got to be the same height, have they? Okay.
Yeah, and there's like
how far could I run and jump? That's basically what it comes.
That's basically yeah. So
basically,
no, they're big buildings, so you probably have 80-yard run up, 60-yard run up, whatever you want. Who's running for 80 yards and then trying to jump?
60 yards. That's the trouble.
Yeah, I'd be running about 20 feet and going for it.
I reckon probably about 4 foot. I think
4 foot.
I think about 4 foot. Yeah.
No more than that.
Maybe. Could I jump as tall as I am high?
That's only a meter.
Depends. I tell you what, Gav. If there was someone chasing me, like a dog or something like that, I reckon I could probably go about 7 or 8 foot. Because you have that extra bit of running, don't you? You know, that fear. You know, when someone's chasing you.
Yeah, the adrenaline.
Yeah, you can always run a bit faster if someone's chasing you. So
I've never seen someone caught by a dog.
Well, hopefully
You know,
you'll
like
see me getting caught by it because I'll be able to jump across the gap.
yeah.
But
then
yeah,
again, dogs are quite good. I think he'd jump past you. I think you'd land on the other roof and then you'd be fucked because he'd have way more energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like maybe let's say I'm 5'8", so probably my height, so maybe 5'8" There we are.
Right, I'll tell you what, we go 6 foot 2 meters.
Go on then. Yeah, tie it up.
Okay, Stephen O'Connor says 14 foot. Stephen O'Connor's reckon. Yeah, I think that's outrageous. Keith Plunkett of this parish says a cape is fine, but full costume is weird. The cape scene hasn't hit Dublin City Centre yet, but it might get here after the COVID-19.
Yeah. I'm literally just thinking purely, Batman. I've seen him do it, so if I had something like that on, that'd be fine.
Keith Plunkett reckons a 20-foot minimum.
20 foot.
There you go, 20-foot minimum. And then Danny Emery says, someone chasing me like a dog. A dog isn't someone. Yeah, but
no.
You know what he means. Something chased him like a dog.
Something like a dog.
The dog shout isn't bad. The dog shout isn't bad.
I'd be worried. If something was chasing you, I think you could go as far as you wanted.
Like Andy from this podcast wanted a fire escape on the other side of the building because he feels that if that's on it, it takes away the distance you have to jump because you could grab onto that on the side, but like that's ridiculous. You're not jumping then, you're just falling and hanging onto a bit of steel off the side of the building.
Yeah.
Stu Mac says it depends who built the gav. I wouldn't trust the Tory build. The ledge would give way. But there you go. But look, I don't know if the cape would work because you've 11 miles an hour with you. You put that cape out, it's just going to flatten it back into your back. If the wind was against you, it might get under the cape. And because planes take off into the wind and they land into the wind, don't they? So the cape might be better for into the wind rather than wind behind you.
Maybe I'll take it with me in a bag just to see what the weather conditions are like. Scope it out. And then
scope the situation out, yeah.
If the weather situation allowed it, I'd stick it on. But probably. I think 6 foot would probably.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the leaderboard at 6 foot. Some people will be giving you a round of applause for that. Some people will be disgusted. I'm a little bit in the middle. I think 6 foot is decent, especially when you're 50 stories high. It's not as easy when you're 50 stories high. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I can't cope with Keith. Obviously, 20 feet. I can't.
Yeah, I know, but listen, I think Keith. He's smoking something special. I think, to be honest with you. Right. Well, look, that has been a brilliant hour. I've enjoyed it from start to finish. I think we've basically sorted out the COVID-19 and what leagues should do and what they shouldn't do. And if they need any advice, they know where we are. That has been the Fatback 4 Daily. Jim, thanks a million, and
cheers,
to have you back
very
on.
Very good to be back on. Thanks very much for having me.
Good stuff. We'll definitely have you back on again soon. That's been it. Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.